Hello, hello, hello. It is I, the Lone Jonesy. And in this video, we're going to be talking about why Chapter 3 was not a bad chapter, and everyone is just kind of going with what Cypher PK says for. But I'm not going to call any opinions. I'm going to respect everyone's opinions on the chapter. It's very, different, from person to person. But for me, Chapter 3 felt like the ultimate Fortnite. It felt like Fortnite's natural evolution, if you will. Now, a lot of people will say the player count was really low in Chapter 3. It was not really a good chapter in some people's standards, but in my opinion, I think it was a great chapter. The problem is everyone just, I don't know if Epic always planned on canceling Chapter 3 with Season 4, or maybe it was the YouTubers, streamers complaining about it and wanting to leave the map. But honestly, if Chapter 3 had more seasons to it, people would remember it and like it a bit better, like how people like Chapter 1 and how people like Chapter 2. Now, let's talk about some of the issues people had with Chapter 3, which was, the loot pool. There was a lot of spray and pray type weapons. Me personally, I loved the Stinger SMG, especially when it was good, because I'm more of a spray and pray type person than, one shot with a pump. I think it was also because the pump was also not really in the meta for the entire chapter, and you had the striker pump, which I'm not gonna lie, I don't like the striker pump anymore. I used to like it back then because it promoted more SMG use, but now when I see it in something like Reload, I'm picking up a pump, bro. I'm not trying to pick up the Temu version of the pump, if you know what I mean. But anyways, the loot pool wasn't really favorable, especially in the Vibin season when we had shit like the Charge SMG. That literally the worst weapon in the game is the Charge SMG. It was so bad, bro. If you were caught with that weapon, bro, you were dead, bro. Use a Stinger SMG or something. But anyways, these are some of the major issues with Chapter 3 that people had. It was mostly just the loot pool. And, back then we didn't have any of these metaverse modes like Lego. We didn't have OG. So everyone was basically forced to play that, Save the World, or Creative. That's how it used to be back in my day. Creative, Battle Royale, or Save the World. Now we got OG Fortnite, Reload, all that cool stuff, which is keeping the player count up. Now, as for Chapter 3, on the topic of Chapter 3, actually, I'm going to explain to you everything that I liked about Chapter 3. It was honestly, if you look past the loot pool crap and, the weird last summer event we had, it was great, bro. Just let me remind you of something. Season 1, we had sliding and swinging. And you could even set up camps where you and your squad could save weapons from match to match. I'm literally quoting the trailer because it was that good. You had Spider-Man web shooters, which I will say were a bit overpowered. You had 80 shots of them, which was nice. I'm not gonna lie. I like swinging around as Spider-Man. I really hope those web shooters come back. But honestly, dude, the web shooters were nice. And especially they meshed well with the Spider-Man skin, so it would feel like you were playing a Spider-Man game and not Fortnite. But you had third-partying issues with them. That was mostly Season 1 stuff. But sliding was a really good feature that they added. It's underutilized nowadays. If you run out of stamina while sprinting, you just do sliding. Not only that, let me remind you what else happened in Season 1. This is when Colombo was introduced. You know, Colombo, if you didn't know, he was like this weird dinosaur guy. If you shot him, he would get angry and destroy players' builds. It was kind of funny. You would shoot at him, and then he would go ram into a sweat who's building a 5-story hotel. Not only that, in Season 1, we had pizza added. Now, pizza was a really unique game item. Like, we never had something like that, where you throw it down and then you have a bunch of heals. I thought it was nice. It added to, like, the authentic feel of, like, a pizza pit, you know? You'd just bring it in there and you'd feel like you were in a pizza pit. A lot of the items, too, had unique features. I know I'm kind of backtracking to the Spider-Man mythic, but you could attach it to cars, pull weapons towards you. Like, Epic didn't have to do all that. Like, they could have just added the swinging feature and called it a day, but they added all these unique things to it for extra detail. And I just want to appreciate that. I don't think enough people actually appreciate that Epic actually took the time to add that. But what made things crazier is when they added tornadoes. Yeah, remember those? They just kind of were added and then they just got removed. They were in there for one season. I don't know why Epic hasn't brought them back, but it was like so cool. They would like destroy POIs and like bring like different things with them. Dude, it was awesome. I miss those. Epic, I doubt you're ever gonna watch my channel, but dude, bring back the storm weather or like the tornadoes, dude. Like, it was awesome. But that was only Season 1. I mean, you did have some collabs in there, like you had Gears of War, I think it's called, and you had, you know, you had the Spider-Man collab. And also, I just want to mention this. They had a Marvel POI in Chapter 3, the Daily Bugle. Oh, wait, we can't talk about Chapter 3 without its unique best POIs we've ever had. Chapter 4, Chapter 5, and Chapter 6, they will never compare to the best POIs of Chapter 3. You had Daily Bugle, a complete recreation of the actual Daily Bugle from the comics, and all the buildings looked cool, and not to mention how they brought back Tilted Towers, and not just brought it back in terms of, like, you know, copy and pasting the entire POI. They remade every single asset of Tilted Towers, and it just looks awesome, dude. I'm not gonna lie, I like classic Tilted Towers, but I like the Chapter 3 version better. And I'm happy that you can still see it in creative by, like, loading the Tilted Towers island. Oh, and also, I want to mention this. They brought back old POIs, like Greasy Grove. You know, they remade that. And I think it was I think they only did Tilted Towers and Greasy Grove. Oh yeah, and they did Shifty Shafts too. Shifty Shafts came back, and it was also remade. But, like, even the POIs that weren't remakes, like, you had the desert area. That desert looked freaking beautiful. I'm not gonna lie. The Chapter 3 desert was insane. And you had all those POIs. You had Condo Canyon. You know, even the landmarks like Butter Barn. Like, man, Butter Barn. Yeah, Butter Barn is a fan favorite of mine. I love it. We still don't have it in creative. But yeah. Anyways. But all the POIs were unique. Like, you know, you also got Sleepy Sounds, Camp Cuddle, a few others I want to mention. But then I think when the lead up to Season 2, we had Command Cavern. And dude, it was a natural evolution when they added Command Cavern. It was the IO, you know? Remember them? That was a cool storyline, the IO versus 7. It's a shame Epic kind of just abandoned it. But we'll talk about that later. But Season 2. There was a build up to the 7, you know. They were on the map, and Jones was with them. The War Season, a lot of people like it, but this is when I think what made people start to hate Chapter 3. I wasn't really a fan of the war season at, like, first. Maybe towards the end I started to like it, but what's weird about that season is they just straight up removed everything from Season 1. Like, they removed Columbos, they removed the weather system, they removed the Spider-Man mythic, despite the Daily Bugle still being there. It was weird, man, but those were kind of just the bad sides of it. The good sides of it were, like, you know, the storyline, man. They focused so much on the storyline that season. It was amazing. And not to mention I would argue the last good event we've ever had was Collision. It's kind of sad saying that because each of the recent events have either just been a concert or just a blatant advertisement. We don't talk about Fractured just because it was doing chores for an hour. But, yeah. That event, dude. You know, you got the mecha there. And then you had, you know, you didn't have the monster this time. You had a collider. And I remember the collider would pulse, like, every hour or something like that. And it was, like, a meme to go over there and, like, mess with it. But, yeah, I mean, Command Cavern, all those IO POIs were cool, man. Like, it was nice seeing the IO, like, try to take over the island. And then the 7 trying to stop them. The Battle Pass was good. You know, he had Doctor Strange in there. I kind of wish they made a Doctor Strange mythic, but it was whatever. I think you also had the Prowler in there. That was a weird choice. I don't know why they chose the Prowler as, like, that was a weird, just randomly picked the Prowler. They could have picked any other Marvel character, but they picked the Prowler, but whatever. That was cool. That was a cool season. And, you know, despite them removing all the cool features from Season 1, you know, it was nice. It was still a nice season. And also, I want to mention one more thing. They also had blimps around the map that would, like, move to different POIs, and we would have to, like, take back the POI. It was fun. It was fun. But Season 2, I mean, it's not my favorite one from Chapter 3. It's not really, like, I would argue, it kind of brings down Chapter 3 a little bit. But it was still a great season, regardless. Now, the Vibin season. Most people will complain about it, right? It's just kind of weird, you know? Like I mentioned earlier, you had the Charge SMG. Like, what? The Charge SMG. The loot pool that season, it was weird at first, like, just why, you know? But I'm pretty sure that was the season when they introduced Ice Cream, which was nice, and, you know, Little Whip got his, like, theme, his sussy theme, that was really, really weird, I ain't gonna lie. I barely remember what happened, other than it was, like, a lead up to Season 4. But, from what I do remember, each of the POIs got changed into Vibin themed, like, there were spray paints everywhere. Like, in Command Cavern, someone went in there and spray painted the entire thing because the loopers had taken it over. And it was like, the whole season was meant to be like a celebration. And little did we know at the time, but that was the last season Donald Mustard actually foresaw. So it was basically a finale to his storyline. That's why there was Darth Vader in the Battle Pass. That's why there was Indiana Jones in the Battle Pass. It was like he wanted to add those characters before he left Epic completely. So that was like his last goodbye to us in the Fortnite community. And there's proof of this because there was a visitor NPC, you know, one of the 7, who said he was going to retire. So I'm pretty sure this confirms visitors, Donald Mustard, yada yada yada. Anyways, back to what made the Vibin season kind of good and better than the War season, almost. It had the vibes. It just, the Battle Pass was kind of weird. I ain't gonna lie. If it weren't for me using some of these characters in, like, my Battle Royale storyline and my UEFN map, yeah, I make maps, by the way. You can check them out. But, you know, most of these characters in the Battle Pass were forgettable, other than Indiana Jones. Eevee kind of had a role later on in Shitty Chapter 4. But you know, a lot of them were forgettable. Like, you never really see these characters ever again. And you could say that for most battle passes, but it was more prevalent in the Vibin season. Like, they could have done, like, made an Amy skin, but I guess since she didn't have a body, it didn't really work. I don't know. It was... We're not going to talk about the battle pass. We're going to talk about what actually happened in the gameplay. So there was these things. You guys might forget this, but remember, I mentioned camps earlier, where you and your squad can store items from match to match. Yeah, those got vaulted that season, I think, if I remember correctly, and they were replaced by these reality root things. What would these do? Well, you could place one, and it would grow within the next match. Like, you could throw it down, and then in the next match, it would grow you a mythic, which was awesome. Like, what battle royale has done that before? Like, people just forget about these features. Like, it was massive, and we don't even get things like that anymore. We don't get things where we can store items. We don't get reality roots. Like, it would have been awesome to have that in creative, but Epic just never bothered with it. And, you know, the feature died off with the Vibin season. And it was mostly because Vibin had its issues. Like, at the time, the summer event seemed bad, but we did not know what would happen the next 2 chapters. We wouldn't. But that was, like, the last good summer event we had. It had ice cream. That's when they added ice cream. That's when they added, I think I don't know. I think they just added ice cream. And, you know, the charge SMG. But other than that, the Vibin season's POIs had interest, you know, like I mentioned, like there was spray paint everywhere. But then you had the reality roots. Now, I mentioned there were the reality root things you can throw down, but there was also the actual reality trees and reality roots. There was a giant tree on the map. I forget how it formed. It was either because the 0 point was underwater, and it was causing reality roots. And each like week, there would be like these reality trees that would pop up all around the map. And they would alter POIs, and then each match, the POI would be different. Say, something like Butter Barn. Yeah, it happened to Butter Barn, a landmark. It would change into a coral-themed Butter Barn. Or, you can go in another, like, like a Colossal Coliseum theme. Or even a Neo Tilted theme. It would switch between Neo, Coral, and Colossal, all these POIs, so you'd get like variety each game. But it was cool. Like imagine dropping in and you just see your POI change each time. Like, I don't know if it would be good for competitive, because you want to know where all the loot spawns, and it would kind of be hard keeping track of all 3 like places at a time. But at the same time, it was cool. Like, people forget about that. Like, that cool stuff. There was also a mini event where there'd be fireworks going off, but other than that, the Vibin season kind of went out with a whimper. It really came and went, because it was actually building up to Season 4. Now, this is when, I'm not gonna lie, it really shouldn't ended with Season 4. Like, it feels weird, dude. Like, you have Chapter 1, 10 seasons. Chapter 2, 8 seasons. Chapter 3, 4 seasons. Like, how does that make any sense? Like, it should have at least ended with 6 or 7 seasons. Like, I'm not gonna lie. I wish it ended like that. But it didn't get more seasons. It just sadly ended with Season 4. Now, Season 4 had some great features. I'm not gonna lie. But it also kind of ruined the map a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. You had this chrome stuff, right? The Herald came up and chromed all over the map. Pause. And yeah, each POI, there was like, Harold had her own POI, Harold Sanctum. It took over the Sanctuary, I think. And there was, each POI was getting chromed. Also, I want to mention this, in the Vibin season, Daily Bugle disappeared and became like this, like, pirate-themed place. Yeah. Anyways, Daily Bugle's gone, but we had Spider-Gwen in the Battle Pass, yet there was no Spider-Man mythic to return. So, like, what? And, anyways, there was chrome all over the map. Each POI would get chrome. Not only that, I think it was No Sweat Insurance was coming in and, like, lifting up POIs. There were floating POIs. Like, there were literally floating POIs everywhere. I thought that was cool. Like, imagine your entire home gets, like, flown in the air because there's chrome all over the ground. A lot of POIs this would happen to. I think Condo Canyon it happened to. Condo Canyon became Cloudy Condos. There was like a pirate ship from the Vibin season that was just in the desert that got moved up. But there were sadly some POIs that would just get completely chromed over and kind of ruin the POI. I don't know. Chrome is such a weak thing. It didn't even fill up the entire map, which sucked. Like, at least with Cubed in Chapter 2, it started to take over the entire map, you know? But, unfortunately, Epic wanted to end the map early. Because either streamers were raging about the map being bad or something like that, or it was really just the loot pool, for the most part, in their opinion. Or it was the fact Donald Mustard had just said, I'm done, bro. I'm submitting my final 2 weeks, I'm out. I will never really get an answer to whether or not Chapter 3 was meant to have more seasons. I think Epic doesn't care. Like, I can @ Tim Sweeney and he will not answer. Or @ Donald Mustard, but he probably can't answer. Probably under NDA or something like that. If you don't know what an NDA is, a non-disclosure agreement. But yeah, back to the season though. I mean, Chrome had some cool things. Like, you had these Evo Chrome weapons that when you shot somebody, it would upgrade your weapon. So you could go all the way to Mythic. You would basically get a free Mythic. And I remember them being, like, somewhat good, somewhat bad. Like, some regular weapons were better than them, but yeah, sadly, we never got an Evo Chrome SMG. I think it's because Epic learned their lesson about adding SMG to anything. But it still would have been cool to get an Evo Chrome SMG. Probably would be overpowered, though. I don't know. But yeah, the storyline kind of went hard, but it kind of didn't. Like, they just fucking decided, let's kill off the 7. Like, just right there. Origin died. Visitor, gone. Scientist, gone. And then they did the worst change ever. So, I don't know if you knew this, but I forgot to mention this. In Season 1, they revealed the Foundation was the Rock. And I'm like, okay, maybe that makes sense. But what doesn't make any sense is there was literally established lore. There's, in Season 9 of Chapter 1, there was a character called Singularity. And then in Season 10, this character called Paradigm, who's one of the 7, came out. And they looked very similar. And even Donald Mustard confirmed. There's like a whole video where he said like something about them being one and the same or being related somehow. And everyone believed that the Singularity was the Paradigm. Even the outfits had similar things on them. Like, there was no way they weren't the same person. But unfortunately, I'm pretty sure Epic saw the monetary value of revealing one of their characters as a celebrity. So then they took Brie Larson and said, you're the Paradigm. And the worst change came out. The first ever Epic mistake had been made. They made the Paradigm Brie Larson. Which sucked. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I saw concept art people were making of, like, what the singularity would look like with Paradigm's suit. And it's just sad. It looks way better than fucking blonde woman thrown into a 7. Like, I ain't gonna lie. No complaints about Brie Larson. She's a good actor, but she should have not been the Paradigm. Like, what the fuck? You know? I don't even care if it would bring in some profits for Epic, but, like, come on, man. It just ruined it. And then, okay, so this is when Fortnite fell off. Started to fall off, is, I would say, Chapter 3, Season 4. Chapter 3, up until this point, yeah, you had stuff like the Charge SMG ruining the game. Maybe some spam weapons like Stinger SMG wasn't that, you know, was bad for some people. But other than this season, other than Season 4, just making some dumb changes, Chapter 3 was good. But you can't talk about Chapter 3 without the most shittiest... Actually, it's not even the shittiest end event anymore. That goes the Big Bang, but that's for a completely different video. The almost all was the shittiest event, but it's not. I will admit, when it comes to Fractured, knowing what we know now that Donald Mustard was gonna quit, you know, it kind of makes sense that there were, like, some things reminding us of, like, the past and stuff. But they could have made a better event. They should have just thrown us on the map and watched the map die, like the other 2 chapters, but they didn't. And the ending felt forced. The other maps, you actually felt sad for leaving. Like, no, we've been on this map for so long, and it's never gonna return. But those 2 did. I don't think Chapter 3 will return, though. Anyways, but, you know, what sucked about this end event is it felt like more of a finale for everything rather than just that chapter. And if Donald Mustard had stayed, I'm pretty sure we would have gotten more seasons. But sadly, the Fractured event happened. There was some storyline. My boy Jones didn't even appear, which sucked. Like, where was he? And then he just disappeared for the entirety of Chapter 4. Like, epic. Why? Anyways, this is the storyline. Paradigm herself to save reality. Too dark, probably. But that's basically what happened. I don't think she's dead, though. I don't think she died. But I do believe that, you know, she could be alive. She could not be. I don't know. You know, we've seen before in the Batman Zero War comics that if you get caught in the 0 point, you're cooked, bro. Like, you get split into millions of pieces. But she reformed reality, and then I would argue her sacrifice didn't mean shit because we went to a terrible map. The biggest downgrade in Fortnite history is Chapter 3 to Chapter 4. Now, people on Twitter will glaze Chapter 4, and I'll respect their opinions on that. But in my fucking opinion, the worst chapter was Chapter 4, and that's gonna be for another video. But anyways, guys, in general, Chapter 3 in my eyes was a good chapter. It just needed more seasons. That's it. If streamers didn't complain about it, we probably would have had a more peak Chapter 4, because Epic would have more time, to work on Chapter 4. But yeah. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit post notifications if you want to see more videos like this, and have a great night. And if